What's up and welcome to Ahead of the Curve. This is your host, Jonathan Gelner, and thank you so much for joining us today. This podcast is powered by Stick and Ball TV, the baseball and softball streaming platform. If you're a coach who's looking to get better, then Stick and Ball is just for you. With weekly updated videos from some of the best baseball and softball coaches in the country, it's an absolute no-brainer. Check them out at stickandball.tv or on the Stick and Ball TV mobile app. On today's show, we have on Bobby Magallanes, hitting coach for the Atlanta Braves. Bobby's pro career began when the Seattle Mariners selected him in the 50th round of the 1989 MLB draft. He played in professional baseball for 12 years, with 6 of them in the Mexican League, and during the 1994-95 MLB strike, Bobby was a replacement player for the Chicago Cubs. Bobby's coaching career started in the Los Angeles Angels organization in 2002, and since, he has been a manager or hitting coach in the minor leagues until he was brought up to the major leagues with Atlanta during September of 2020. In 2021, the Braves promoted him to the major league coaching staff as an assistant hitting coach, and most recently, he was a member of the 2021 World Series champions. So on the show, we discuss what separated this Braves club, and we take a deep dive into what makes a great hitter and a great hitting coach. You're going to love this episode with World Series champion Bobby Magallanes. Bobby, welcome to the show.
Thanks. Appreciate it. Happy to be here.
For sure. Well, I am. It's hard for me to contain my excitement just because of the last couple of months. I've gotten to see you and the group that you guys had go on and win a world championship. And it's so like fresh and new, and man, it's just really exciting. So let's start right there. So let's try and capture, because I'm sure we could spend a whole show on this, but let's try and capture like what tell us a little bit about that team. Like what made that team so special? What were they like to be around, and just kind of in your best way of explaining the magic that is fall baseball. Tell us a little bit about that group.
Obviously, special group. I mean, anytime you're on a team that wins the World Series, it's a special group. This team is so tough to do, but it was, like you said, it was a special group. We all came together. I mean, chemistry, talent, everyone pulling for each other. It was such good to be a part of that, and not only just with the players, but also with the coaching staff, front office. I mean, we're all one unit, and we were there for one purpose: that's to win a World Series. And when you do that, it's just a special feeling, and we're all pulling for each other. But it was a special group with great chemistry.
I love hearing that, and I know you've been a guy who's been around professional baseball for a long time. I think I read 30 years. Playing and then managing, and I would love to hear just what you've been on. Some really good clubs, like we even mentioned you won the Texas League a little while back. You've won a World Series, and then you've probably been on some clubs that weren't as good. And talent is it is a separator, but in my opinion, it's not the only one. So I would love to hear like what was the difference with this group? You talked about the culture and like the buy-in, and I'm sure they got hot at the right time, and there was a lot of belief and maturity in that group, it seemed like. But you were in it every day, so I'm seeing this from the outside in, and you've got a lot of good veteran players and leaders. But just like did it all just come together at the right time with the right group, with the right set of people, and with the right talent? Like I'm just trying to pick this apart, but I guess that's $1 billion question, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, so, obviously we were, I think, under 500 going into August. And so we just couldn't get rolling. We had a good team. We just couldn't get rolling, but we had a lot of adversity, injuries. That was the main thing. We just couldn't get it rolling because, we had Travis d'Arnaud go down, silver bat winner last year. He was our 4-hole hitter. He goes down. And then Marcell Osuna goes down as well. He loses the whole season. Acuna goes down, loses the rest of the season. We just had so many setbacks and so many injuries. The key guys that it just seemed like it was one thing after another, and then we just couldn't get hot either. We win a couple games in a row and lose a couple games in a row. It was just one after another. But once the trade deadline came, Alex Anthopoulos, our GM, went out and got 4 key players, and that really, really, I think, was the difference of our team. And not only were they talented players, but they came in right away and they meshed with our club. The chemistry, I mean, it was just a perfect fit. And we got rolling. Everything started clicking after that. The pitching was consistent. The bullpen, man, I mean, these guys were phenomenal. They were lights out. Our hitting just started picking up, having some good at bats. But I mean, 1 through 9, we were pretty stacked with some good hitters with power as well. But to me, it was the chemistry of the ball club and how everyone got along and were pulling for one another. And the energy of the team. It was like that one goal. Okay, we're going to win, but we're going to pull for one another. And that's what I think what set us apart, that really helped us go forward. And even our bench, I mean, our bench guys came in and did great. I mean, you saw that in the postseason. Our pinch hitters were phenomenal, hitting homers, hitting key base hits, having some quality at bats. Again, it all clicked, and I really believe it was just the makeup of the team and the chemistry.
Sure. No, that's great. And I think this is a really neat question too, because you mentioned 3 of those of your main contributors going down, and then you traded for some of the biggest contributors in the playoffs. And so right before the trade deadline, you acquired, I think, 3 or 4 different outfielders. And so I'd love to hear your thoughts on how did you get to know those guys and help them, because you knew nothing about them, and then the playoffs start and not a lot of time to really get to know them. But what was your process on getting to know those new guys? What makes them tick? How you can help them, and just your process of gaining trust with them?
Well, as you said, that was the main thing, getting to know them. Relationships are big. In coaching, to me, if there's one thing, a quality that I think a coach can have, is to be able to build relationships and to have people skills. To me, that's important. Because once you get to know the person and you get to see what they're about, you can help them better. I've said this many a times, other podcasts and people when interviewing me, I said, you know what? I don't coach ball players. I don't coach baseball players. I coach people. And
I love that.
So that's the main thing. I want to get to know them. And, when they came in, it was just getting to know them. I asked questions. I ask a lot of questions. I think more than having answers and suggestions, I think a good coach and a good leader is someone who knows how to ask questions. I think you ask the right questions, you're going to get some really good answers. You get to really get in deep into what you want to hear and what you need to hear from the players. So I like doing that, and I like to get to know them. What their hobbies, what they like to do. When they're going good, what do you do? When you're going bad, what do you do? What are your routines? What drills? What are your go-to drills? Just whatever it is, man. Not only just baseball and swing wise, but also what how many kids you have? You married? What does your dad do? Just things like that, because when you get into knowing the player, you get to see their background, where they're from, and that helps me in terms of like how to connect with them and to earn trust, but also what's their learning style. I ask a lot of questions just to see how they learn, because when they respond and they give an answer, it paints a picture. It tells me, okay, this is how he thinks, this is how he learns, or this is what he likes, this is what he doesn't like. And so, like you said, it's building the relationship first, and then you earn their trust. And not only that, when they see that if you give them something or they ask for something, like right away, I don't right away start working with someone. Okay, this is what we're going to do. I like to see what they have. I like to see what they can do. And then I go back, just watch video of when they were successful, what they've done. I like to see what they can do, because hitting is so individualized, and we need to know that as coaches, because they're all different, and they learn different, and they think differently. So yeah, we got to get to know that player first, build relationships, and once you got that, then you can ask something or add something to them, or they even come up to you, hey, what do you see? And once they do
Sure.
that, now it opens up the door. Okay, now
Oh
they
yeah.
let me in. Now
Mm-hmm.
you know what? This is what I'm seeing. You're doing good here, but you know what? This is what I'm seeing. Would you like to try something? I
Mm-hmm.
ask questions. Hey, one question I ask a lot. Okay, are you happy? Are you satisfied with where you're at? I look at their career numbers and hey, so are you good? I see your career 230, 240 hitter. Are you good with that? Are you happy with that? If you are, great. Let's keep going. If not, what are you willing to do? Or do you
Mm-hmm.
want to get better? I ask questions. Now when they answer, it's like, okay, it's you I'm a big believer in just getting to know them and see where they
Sure.
want to go.
Sure. No, and I would love to hit on your sports psych background. And I know and I listened to you on the Patrick Jones podcast, which he did a phenomenal job, and you did as well. But you mentioned that was one of the changing points in your career of when you got your master's in sports psych. And so tell us a little bit about how that process changed you. And me having some background in it, not a ton, but it sounds like a lot of the stuff that you're talking about is that coming out. So tell us a little bit about how that went about and how you're using it still today.
Well, yeah, I ended up getting a master's in performance psychology, which it's not sports psychology. It's
Oh, okay,
it's
cool.
it's not so much clinical. Sports psychology handles more of the clinical part, and
Okay.
it really digs deep into that area. Performance psychology has to do more with what it talks about performance.
I love it.
How do you perform better? And it's
Hmm.
not only in sports. It can be a lawyer, it can be a doctor, it can be a teacher, anything. Just how do you perform better? The good ones, what do they do? What is it that the good ones, not the good ones, excuse me, the great ones, what do they do that makes them great? And it's really the study of peak performers. And a peak performer is someone that's good from their rookie year to the last year they played. So it's not like they had one or two good years in between. No, they were good from the beginning to the end. What makes them great their whole careers? That's what we're trying to study. We're trying to see what they do, and we can pick something from them. But getting that degree really helped me out, uh, because again, it taught me the mental part of the game. It taught me how does the brain function, what the thoughts are
Hmm.
that creates the moves, that creates our performance.
Hmm.
Um, but also, there's another area in performance psychology, which was the motor skill learning, and that's really where I that's what made me to me. I took me to another level as a coach, was learning motor skill learning,
Sure.
and we studied that in performance psychology, and that really helped me out to where, as a coach, how do we get guys to transfer their skill into a game? And that's what to me, that's what helped me out, and that's what I ended up learning, how to create practices and drills that can help the player transfer that skill into the game.
Hmm. No, I love it. And, I reached out to a couple friends of mine who worked with you, Justin Toole being one, and
Mm.
Pete Lawrenson being another one. And they both mentioned, hey, you got to ask him about random practice. He loves that. And so tell us a little bit about, what you do with that. And it ties right into skill acquisition and motor learning. And so I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, you know what? So that's the thing I learned. There's a thing called block and random practice, and block practice is the type of practice that is repetitive. You're just working on one thing at that time, and you're just learning that one skill. There's no chaos. Give me example is putting the tee in one spot, and you take 20 swings off the tee, trying to hit a line drive to the back of the net. That's block. You're not really working on anything. You're just hitting over and over. There's not much decision making involved, um, and you're really just working on one thing. Random is when you're doing variations of that one skill. So a random can be, if we're going to do it off a tee, it can be where I put the tee, I take one swing, and then I move the tee to another spot. I take a swing. After that swing, I move it to another height and area as well. And
Okay.
it's random. I keep moving it around. Uh, it's you're not going A, B, C. You're going A, D, C, B, F. I mean, you're just changing it around to where it's not just one thing after another.
Sure.
That's called random. And when you do that, you also add chaos to it. So again, you can add machine where you're throwing it, you're putting it up to a high speed with some movement. Basically, you want practice to be tougher than the game. That's random.
Okay.
You want the game to be slow. And in baseball might be the only major sport that doesn't get practice game speed. And really you can't, because you need pitchers, and you can't blow up your pitchers in practice. They need a pitch, but it's the only sport that really doesn't practice game speed. We're the opposite. We practice slow, and then the game is fast. And so in random practice, you're trying to create it to where that practice is tougher than the game. That way the game is easier and it's slower.
Sure. No, I really like that. And so I'm curious because, a lot of our listeners are college who will have some down days during the season and an entire off season. With the amateur coaches that are listening, so high school and down, there's plenty of time to be able to do that in the off season and sprinkle it in during the season. But you're playing every day, and usually in the off season, I'm assuming you see those guys some, but there's not a lot of them that you see every single day. And so when is it okay to do that stuff during a major league season? And then two, what would be your best advice in regards to, with pro players and guys like that that you've experienced? And I'm sure that depends on the level too, but I guess, is it okay to do some of that stuff in season? Are they open to doing some of that?
Oh, definitely. It's okay. I encourage it. Obviously not all hitters, especially at the big league level. You got a lot of veteran players who got their own routines. They don't really want to change. They're kind of a little hesitant to try something, especially when somebody's worked their whole careers. And I don't blame them. I'm like, hey, because it's all about the bottom line is the game. If the bottom line is the result in the game, are you hitting? It doesn't matter what you do before. It's like, are you having success in the game? And that's the bottom line. But if you're not, okay, let's help you have that success in the game. And it's research, and it's evidence-based research that random practice is the best type of practice to transfer skill into a game. And so, yeah, I mean, I did it with a couple guys, not many, but yeah, a couple guys I would do the randomness, and it helped them out. And it's not only just like machine. Okay, you want to put the machine up, and I try to make it hard. Like, slider. Hey, I want to help a slider. I'm having a tough time with the slider. Okay, and I try to make it a dirty slider. And they're like, man, I can't hit that. It's like, they want to get their confidence. And I'm going, you don't get your confidence by taking 10 line drives to the back of the cage nice and easy right there. I go, that's not it, because the game's not like that. You're going to go and all of a sudden there's going to be movement, speeds, change of speeds. You have so many variances and factors, the umpire, you have the catcher, you have the defense. There's so much stuff that, you're going to come back in and you're going to be 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts. But yet, even though you hit off the machine that day, you practiced nothing but sliders. They were just easy getting me over sliders. All of a sudden now you bring into, okay, let's try to make that slider almost like the slider you're going to face in the game with the same type of break, vertical break, horizontal break, spin rate. You want to get that in to where all of a sudden, okay, now it's like, oh, it's game on. It's tough. I might not even hit. I might take 20 swings and maybe square one up, but that's okay, because when you go see it now in the game, it looks slower, looks easier, and you can get on it. So that's you do practice that, and
Cool.
And the guys who have done it have had success. I've seen it. It's like, because it's proven, it's evidence based, but a lot of guys aren't willing because you're going to get beat up. I mean, you're not going to have success in practice, and to me, it's like if practice is easy, then you're not challenging yourself. You got to go to something higher. You got to go to something tougher. And then when you master that, then go to something tougher. Just make it harder and harder, because once you master it, you got to go to another level.
No, that's so good. And I for some reason I was thinking about, okay, I love that, number one, and then two, I think, you even mentioned there's some guys who really needed that. Maybe even it was bench guys who aren't seeing live pitching every single day. And then you've got guys that are playing every day that might do that some. And you mentioned understanding what those guys need. And for some reason or another, I was just thinking of I get to read articles, you get to be in the midst of it all, but reading articles about, guys putting machines on the field before practice or before the game, which I think, it's a cool idea. And I think that it would work, like you mentioned, but also going back to the playoffs when Freddie Freeman was trying to hit ground balls to the shortstop, I'm like, okay, this is like, I love that because people were like, that doesn't work. And then he just, it got him locked in. And so I'm like, okay, like people need to understand like like you've mentioned this several times already. So I'm pretty much repeating what you said, but going back to what does the player need? What's going to get him locked in? He's a veteran who's been around for forever. Obviously he knows what he needs and you can be there to challenge him when he's not. But I just thought that was so interesting, the dynamic of all or nothing to one side or the other, when it's rarely ever like that in coaching.
Yeah, again, it's cues, and you got to know the hitter. It's how does he think? What gets him to make the move in the game? And they might think differently. And they're all different, So if we have 12 hitters or 14, whatever we have, we as a coaches, we need to speak 12 different languages because every guy, the way they cue it is different. It's crazy. It's like, I can have someone say, okay, when you think of the word bear, what do you think? And, some people might say, oh, shoot. Oh, yeah, bear, an animal. And some might say, oh, shoot, bear means naked. So those are two different things. You're like, oh, my gosh. I was like, so now it's like, I can't have the same language for every guy because they perceive it differently.
Right.
And so we have to speak their language. It's like, what is it that clicks for them? What are the cues? What is it that where their brain processes what you're trying to get them to do? And again, we're all different in that aspect.
Sure.
But yeah, it's what gets that guy to make that move in a game, because you can be a great practice player, but we're trying, the game is the final. It's the exam, the final exam. It's the game. That's where we want to perform and not in practice. And that's where I tell guys, okay, you want to be a good practice player? Or do you want to be a good game player? Because usually practice is tough. I mean, if you're making it tough and you're not doing well in practice, because how tough it is, the game's going to be easier. But if you want it to be easy in practice, where you're just having success and getting confident, all of a sudden the game speeds up on you. You're just not gonna have that. And that's the one thing I try to explain to players, just that you want the practice to be tougher than the game because you want the game to be slower and easier.
No doubt. No, I love that. And I'd love to talk some game planning and things like that with you. I also want to hit on, reading lately just some of the routines on some of those guys. And you've got guys like Harper and Shohei who said they don't even take on-field BP much anymore, which, 10 or 15 years ago would have been crazy to think, right? But it's those guys really going through even some struggle, I'm sure, to really figure out the process of what works for them. And I love that aspect of it, because I'm sure they've tried and failed several different ways. And it's just really trying to get to the root of, okay, what's going to make me the best version of myself. And I just find that awesome.
Yeah. About not taking BP, there's quite a few guys who don't take BP. Last year, Freddie Freeman in a shortened season was the MVP of the National League. And he didn't take BP during the season at all. This year he took a little bit more, but not that much. I can name you a lot of guys that don't take BP during the season.
That's cool.
Adam Duvall didn't take BP the whole year until towards the end of the season, towards the playoffs and all that. But this is the guy who led the National League in RBIs and didn't take batting practice, on the field. So everything has to do with the guy, what gets him prepared, because they're the ones doing it. They're the ones good. This is what works for me. That's why you got to get to know yourself. That's where me as a coach, I can't say, oh, you're wrong, man. You're not doing it right. Look at the results. It's like, we can't do that. But it's like, okay, what works for that guy? And me personally, if we get really good cage work done, I'm okay if a guy doesn't take batting practice, because, hey, you're ready. Trust it. We got it done already. Now, if you want to go outside, that's up to you. But because again, too many swings, you get tired, and then you can overanalyze, and then the psychological part comes in. It's like, man, I had such a great cage session. All of a sudden, I went out to the batting practice and I didn't hit that good, and it could be a lot of factors. It
Sure.
could be maybe, the background wasn't that you liked it, or if you're on the road, I just couldn't see it but good, or the BP pitcher that was pitching that day maybe wasn't throwing the way you're used to. I mean, there's so many factors that come in that all of a sudden now they're thinking, oh, guys suck, which is not true. It's like,
Right.
no, it has nothing to do what you do in practice in terms of how many line drives you hit. And here's the thing in performance psychology. You do not want to base your confidence on how you feel. You don't. Because if you're basing on feelings, you're not going to have success. Because I can ask hitters, and I've asked them a lot, okay, how many years have you played? I've been playing 10 years now professionally. Okay, can you tell me and count how many times, can you count on your hands, how many times in 10 years you felt great up at the plate?
Love that.
And they're like, man, maybe a couple times. I mean, they can count them on one hand. Like, there you go. So if you're basing your confidence on how you feel, you're not going to have success. I don't want them to base off that. Well, it feels good. Sometimes what's good doesn't feel good. What's right doesn't feel good. So, I mean, it's like if you have a bad batting practice, that's not an indication that if you having a bad game. I mean, so many guys have had bad BPs and gotten off in the game. And how many times have hitters have had great BPs and you're like going, oh my gosh, it's like they struck out 3 times. Like, what happened? You're so good in BP. It's not an indicator. You gotta trust the process, and you gotta trust that your preparation, you're ready to go. You gotta get your confidence from your preparation.
Sure. No, let's dig into that a little bit. So, with the group that you're helping lead in some of the most pressure-filled situations that you can even imagine, how did you help them through that? Because I don't know how many of those guys had ever been to a World Series. I know they mentioned Jock had been to the last 3, which is crazy. But just thinking about how to go about, winning pitches, and just I'm just trying to think of, okay, man, like if I was in that situation, if I was in the box, I'd be freaking out. But just trying to get them to, and you've been around the game for a long time too, so I'd love to hear your process on and what you guys did to just kind of de-escalate the situation and just understand, hey, that we may not have been here before, but we've been here before, if that makes sense.
Well, yeah, obviously, the World Series, some of the players weren't there before, but we did have some who were, and we did have experience. That's the thing. It's like, Jorge Soler experienced the World Series with the Cubs. He won a World Series with them, and had a lot of at-bats in that postseason. So he had experience. Charlie Morton, tremendous experience in postseason and World Series, pitching the Game 7 to clinch it. He was there. We had that experience. We did have a couple players like that. Jock Peterson. I mean, how many World Series has he played in? I mean, that helps us out so much, having players like that. Travis d'Arnaud, experiencing World Series with other teams. So we had it. We did have that experience. But yeah, and there are some of us that didn't have it in the World Series, that experience as well. But when you mix that in, and it's like, we kind of knew how we needed to act. And I credit a lot Brian Snitker, our manager. He is phenomenal at taking the pressure away from the players. He keeps it simple the whole season. He doesn't get too high, doesn't get too low. And that's how he was the whole playoffs. And when you see that coming from the manager, it's like, we just go play. It's another game. We're playing another game. Yeah, we know that there's pressure. Yeah, because it's excitement. It's the World Series. I mean, it's, you got, you step out on the field for batting practice, and it's, oh my gosh, the media attention is incredible, so there is that excitement. But we're just trying to keep it as simple, still, having fun and doing the same thing, not try to change too much or anything really. It's like, let's just go. We're playing this game. We're playing baseball today. And we prepared. That's another thing we did. We prepared so much, man, in the World Series. I feel like our game planning went to another level in the World Series, as a staff, as a team, as an organization, and that helped us out.
Can you dive into any of that?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just we obviously there's more. You get more time to do that because you have off days in between. You have off days before. You have off days in
Hmm.
between the series. So, and I know you're facing the same team over and over. You're like, oh, it's a broken record, but we were just picking things up on pitchers. We're picking things up on what guys do, and
Hmm.
and and again, I just felt like that, and the game plan, the what our plan for that pitcher, and even for the relievers, I really feel went to another level. Our front office did a great job. Our our analytics department did a phenomenal job of giving us that information. And I mean, these guys
Hmm.
in the front office, it was 24/7, man. I mean, they hardly slept. They were in there getting information over and over, which, you can do that because you have one series. You're playing one team for, if they went 7 games, you can plan for 7 games.
Hmm.
You don't have to worry it's a 3-game series. And you got to go to the next team. The next team, it was like, okay, we're going to put all our attention to this one series and this one team. And our front office and our analytics department did a phenomenal job of giving us that. And our Kevin Seitz, our main hitting coach, our head hitting coach, I have to say, he did a great job too of getting all the information and getting it to bite size and giving it to the players.
Sure. And does having veteran players that have a voice and have been there before, does it help with that aspect too, and have seen the guys before?
Oh, absolutely. Because sometimes your best coaches as players sometimes are your teammates, are the veteran players, because they're in the grind, they're in there doing it, and they talk shop. I mean, they're consistently helping each other out, picking each other's heads on game planning, on what they see, what to do, and yes, those veteran players are outstanding for a ball club. And I think that's, like I said it before, I think that was what we had was such good leadership and veteran presence that it helped us out.
I love it. So, one of the things that I think I'd like to know more about is what did your couple of weeks look like? Because you talk about the analysts and the front office not sleeping at all. I'm sure you were exactly the same. So I'd love to hear about your routines and just a little bit about, how you approached every single day.
Yeah, so I mean, routine. You're right. It's a routine-oriented sport, and that's how I kept it. Whatever time I went to the field, I went on that bus that would take all the staff. Got there and did the same thing. The first thing I do, I try to maybe get a bite to eat and get my coffee, and it's video room. It's going into the video room right away and
Hmm.
trying to see go and see the video of the opposing pitcher, and I try to see his last couple starts and see if we can pick stuff up. We go in and get all the information, all the percentages of what he throws, what's he's in the zone, with what pitches, what's his out pitches, where's the heat maps on them.
Hmm.
I mean, all that stuff, and we go over it pitch by pitch, and we know where it's at, and we're trying to see it too, where it's coming out of his breaking ball, where's his fastball coming out of, um, and then from there we try to get a game plan going, and also the relievers, we do the same thing on the relievers.
Sure.
So there's a lot of preparation. I mean, that it's hours of it, not just a couple minutes. It's pretty, it's hours of it, and then from there we I go to the cage and okay, just whoever starts coming in one by one,
Hmm.
and go over also, go over after I go over the start, we go over the starting pitchers. It's also going over the hitters, our hitters. Hey, what are they doing? How's their swing? Especially the guys are struggling maybe a little bit. The ones that are
Sure.
fine, we all don't go into that, but I try to see their swings. Okay, what are they doing? Let's see what their swing is, and go over that to help them out when they go into the cage.
Hmm.
Maybe there's some drills we might add, or what, I'm seeing this. Let's just focus on this today. And a lot of it can be just mental, and
Hmm.
and it can be something where you're just not swinging at strikes right now, so don't worry about your swings. Just I'm looking at the video, and those swings, excuse me, those pitches you swung at were out of the zone. So let's just worry about just zoning them up. Your swing's fine. So
Hmm.
yeah, and then during the game, I'm in the cage a lot, especially being National League where there's no DH. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah, that's true.
sometimes we start pinch hitting at times second, third inning. I mean, as early as that it can happen,
Right.
and especially if we have an opener, we start using an opener. We might
Hmm.
pinch hit in the second inning. I don't know.
Oh, that's
So
cool.
our guys is getting those guys ready, those bench guys ready, in the cage to pinch hit.
Oh, that's really cool. I love hearing a little bit of the behind the scenes with that. So again, going back to the podcast with Patrick that you were on, I really the two strike approach piqued my interest, and I when you start to see something, or at least a theory that comes up several times, especially World Series champ talks about it as well. I'd love to hear more about that, because I think Jeff Leach on Twitter posted the other day. They said, what is or was your two strike approach? And there was literally like threads of different stuff. And I was like, man, like if I'm thinking about all of this stuff in the box, oh my gosh.
Exactly.
And it probably depends on the pitcher, but just having kind of a default of, okay, I don't know a ton about this guy, but here's where I'm going to look. And this is when I'm going to go, or just understanding pitch shape and things like that. But I'd love to hear, and please tell our guests more about just kind of a default two strike approach for those who are looking to simplify things.
I think it can be individually based, because like you said, right now, I mean, you're going to get so many different answers. It's because every hitter is different the way they think. Some guys spread out, choke up, get up on the plate. Some guys don't do it because they say that doesn't help them. Everyone is different. That's the thing. I know I'm at this level where these guys are the best in the world, but also you have some amateurs, you have all that are listening to this too. To me, it's simplifying it, and it comes down to swinging at strikes. That's the key, is to have pitch and zone recognition. Because once you can see the ball and you can see it like that, I mean, there's some times where if I see, we have so many reports on pitchers, and one of the things I like to see when he gets a two strikes is what's his out pitch, what does he like to put away a hitter with, and also, is he in the zone? Does he expand? So if I see the pitcher with two strikes expands, and I'm seeing, oh my gosh, I mean, all these two strike pitches are out of the zone and guys are chasing. Now I'm going, wait a minute, we're not going to expand our zone as hitters with two strikes. Sure. Now we're going to keyhole them. Now I want to shrink it. If anything, I want to shrink the zone with two strikes. I mean, there are times where I've said to a couple of hitters, hey, you know what? It's a 2-0-3-1 count once he gets to 0-2 on you. And keyhole him, and it's going to be a pitch. It's got to be right down the middle. And before you know, we're back to a 3-2 count, and we got back in a 3-2 count like that. And I've seen that. I've seen. I was in AAA a couple years ago, hitting coach there, and as teams were going around, and you talk to other hitting coaches, say hi, and we try to pick each other's heads on things, but it was going around that it's like, man, you guys don't chase, man, it's tough to put you guys away, and I'm going, well, your pitchers expand so much, it's like we're just gonna we're looking for a pitch right down the middle with two strikes. And we get back in counts, and that's the thing. It's like, okay, that's something that we see on pitchers. Again, you're going to see some pitchers who have great stuff. It's tough to do, but again, that's just an example of a two strike approach. What can that guy do? It's like you got to take the factor in of what the pitcher does and what the hitter can do, what his abilities are, and how he thinks. When I was in college, the head coach, George Horton, who he was very successful Division I coach afterwards at Cal State Fullerton and at Oregon. And he told us when I was playing for him, he says, hey, with two strikes, hit and run a strike. And that approach helped me. Like, I was going to hit and run a strike. And I was a good hit and run guy. I put the ball in play. I can make contact. When I had that approach, I chased less. I just felt like I can put the bat on the ball, because I wasn't thinking striking out. I wasn't thinking, hey, because all that negative stuff goes in and says, don't strike out, which is so negative. You end up striking out. It was more like, okay, I'm going to put this ball in play. But again, I think it's individualized, and there's so much factors that go into a two-strike approach. But again, each hitter's different, and you just got to simplify it, like you said.
How much does expanding the zone, in which I used to do and probably why I swung at balls, but also the anxiety side, how much does that play into hitter striking out more?
Huge. I think you chase more when you don't want to strike out. It's like, it's negative. I mean, we learn in psychology, it's like anytime you say don't do that, you're going to do it. So don't is negative, and then don't strike out. The brain, the last thing it heard when you said don't strike out was strike out.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll probably strike out. And then the first word was don't, which is negative. It's like it just messes with your brain and how it functions. But to me, it's like, what do you want? Tell the hitter what you want them to do, not what you don't want them to do.
Sure.
And yeah, I mean, to me is when hitters like, okay, I don't want to strike out, they start expanding the zone. That's when they start chasing. That's when it's like they just like, man, I'm just gonna keep swinging and miss. Instead of that fear striking out, everyone's got fear. Everyone's got it. It's like, how do you handle it? The good ones know how to handle that fear. Okay, how do you handle the fear striking out? And again, if you're like a hitter, like, you know what, if he painted on me, I'll tip my hat to him. But sometimes, like, no, I'm going to foul that pitch off, and we end up expanding even more. And I'm not saying that we don't want, foul off pitches. No, not at all. That's what we wanted. We want to foul off the tough pitches and hit a mistake. Sure. But the point is that, everyone has to think different. We got to get to know each hitter to give him an approach that works for him, that could calm him down.
No, I really like that a lot. And again, it comes all full circle back to that, having that relationship with the player, opening those doors of conversation, with no fear of judgment, and just trying to get to the heart of what works for them. And I love hearing, you are the assistant hitting coach for a big league team, and I'm a high school coach, and we're speaking a similar language just because players are very similar, different talent wise, but right. They all go through fear of judgment, fear of other people's opinions, wanting to impress other people, and all of that pressure that goes into that. And I love hearing that. I think it's really neat. Yeah,
you're right about that.
Oh, very cool. So, one of the other things I wanted to ask you too is, again, you're at the top of the game, and you may have some different opinions on, how things are going, and not necessarily other organizations specifically, but just as the game in general, different trends that we go back and forth to. And again, 10 years ago, if Freddie Freeman was hitting backside ground balls, people would have called him crazy because we want, to hit it straight up in the air or whatever works for them. And it's funny because I haven't been in the game as long as you have, but it seems like nothing is new, and everything comes back into a full circle of things like that. But what are some different things that you feel like maybe overlooked, or maybe trending in the wrong direction, or just any advice that you could give our coaches that are like, okay, so I really want to continue to improve, but I want to improve at the right stuff. Does anything come to mind?
I think what gets overlooked is team chemistry and makeup. And I say that because it's so numbers oriented now, baseball, because of all the analytics. And I love numbers. I really do. It paints a picture. I use the technology. I've used that. I go in, I like to see all the numbers. I do. But I think the one thing that has been overlooked has been the chemistry on a team and the makeup of the players. Teams can go out there and sign these players because the numbers say this.
Sure.
But they overlook the makeup of the player, and that can hinder a team. I mean, our makeup was off the charts. Our GM does a phenomenal job of bringing the right players in. I mean, think about this. He traded for Jorge Soler, who was hitting $190 something. He traded for Rosario, who was on the DL at the time, and he was hitting 240, 250, and on the DL. Jock Peterson was kind of struggling when we trade. I mean, you're like, wait a minute, he's training for these guys. But when he does his homework, he's like, okay, what's this guy's makeup? Can he help us win? You know what? And here's another thing too. If a guy's got aptitude, then we can help him because he's going to get better.
Sure. Yeah.
So, and that's the thing. Guys have come to what I have seen the last 3 years here with the Atlanta Braves. Hitters that we've gotten that have come from other organizations have come in here, and that we're kind of not doing so well have come here and turned careers around. They've done well. So we're doing a pretty good job there, and that has a lot to do with our GM bringing in the right guys. But we've done a pretty good job of not only winning but also developing some players. And so to me, it's makeup and the chemistry and the makeup of the person to bring in here. And because of analytics, analytics doesn't measure the human factor. And that's the thing where it gets overlooked, the human factor. And that's in not only building a ball club, but also decisions that are made in-game decisions as well. You know, a lot of it, the human factor it is not applicable when analytics takes over. And again, I'm a big believer in analytics. I do. It paints a picture. It's helped me out a lot as a coach, but we also got to take the human factor into it.
I really like that. And funny story. So we have the Dodgers teams as minor league teams in Oklahoma. So a lot of our kids are Dodgers fans, you know. And so we were just chatting about the playoffs, and they were like, "Who are you going for? Who are you going for?" I was like, "Man, I really like the Braves." And I don't really have a team, and so they're like, "Why? Why would you like the Braves?" I was like, "Name a player on there that you don't like." And not that the Dodgers don't have likable players, but they're like, "Oh, that's true." Like, and so it got them thinking about that stuff, and they were like, "Man, I really can't." And I was like, "Yeah, see, exactly." And so it got us talking about, you know, why when you hear being a good teammate and that's just a force multiplier that I think you're 100% correct. You may not be able to put a number on it, but it makes you're around it when you're around it, you can feel it. And the players will point out the best teammates they've ever had too, and how that's made them better. And I love hearing you say that. That's really cool.
Yeah. Yep.
So a couple of questions before you go is, and this one is a heavy one. And so I apologize if it gets too heavy. But looking forward in 10 or 15 years, when you are telling this World Series champion story to maybe your kids or your grandkids, and they're asking you about it during Thanksgiving or whatever it may be, what is a story that will come to mind, and one that you're like, oh man, like this was my favorite story about that team?
Perseverance. It was a team of perseverance. That's the thing I can tell. And I tell my kids right now. I mean, we still talking about this, and again, other people that call and want to, you know, talk about that, they ask questions as well. But if it's one thing that I take away from this team was perseverance. This team persevered, and it was so awesome. Obviously, we won it all, and that's great. But to be a part of this team and what it did, to go through what we did, and here's the thing, our team never lost hope. It was like, we know we're not where we want to be. We're not where we used to be, but we know where we're going to be. We know where we want to get to. And it was just a matter of time. It was like, and it was like one thing after another. Oh, now what? Guy gets hurt. Oh, shoot. All of a sudden, our left fielder gets hurt. 3-0 hitter. Oh, now what? And all of a sudden, Acuna gets hurt. Like, what now? And then we have our ace in Game 1 of the World Series, breaks his leg. He's out. You're like, what now? But here's the thing: we persevered, and you know, I use the Bible a lot. I read a lot, and I use a lot. That's where I get my faith and everything. But you know, the Bible says that those who persevere till the end shall be saved, and also it says that perseverance produces character, and character produces hope. You got to persevere to produce character, to give you the hope for that future. And that's one thing, if I can say about the team, what I remember most is how it persevered. Everything, every mountain we had to climb and push out of the way, every sea we had to go through where God opened up the waters for us because we didn't know what the hell we're going to cross it. And all of a sudden he opens up the waters. To me, it was a perseverance and the faith that got us through.
Man, I'm really kicking myself because I wish I would have ended with that question, but I've got a couple more for you before you go. But man, that is so good. Oh, I love that. Man. Okay. So, let's dig into you a little bit. We have a lot of coaches that are listening who are like, man, I would love to be the best version of myself, whether that's the assistant hitting coach someday in the big leagues or just a really good high school youth coach, whatever it may be. So what's something that you've learned lately that has really piqued your interest or you've gotten excited about?
You know what, lately, this year, what I learned, I'm telling you what I'm learning relearn every year. There's two things that I'm excited about and I've learned. The number one are cues. Learning the cues. Cues are big in coaching. And it's something that this year I started learning more. Our minor league hitting coordinator, Mike Brumley, is really good at that. He knows how to how to give cues to help a guy, make a move. But there's also, I mean, there's studies done on that, on cueing, how to give cues to hitters, whatever it is. And like I said earlier, every guy's different. And that's one thing I think I learned was, okay, cues. What is it that gets them going? And every guy's different, I mean,
Sure.
some guys, I like to know what they do. Like, hey, what hobbies? Some guys are hunters, some guys are fishers, some fishermen, excuse me. Some guys like to play golf, some guys play basketball, some guys play football. So okay, so when you do that, I try to incorporate those things that can help them, like, oh, so that's what I need to do. And so cues are so important in coaching, because we can be so verbose and over coach it that we're like saying, okay, I'm going to say this because this is my language and I want this guy to learn my language, but he doesn't get it. It's like, no, it's like, okay, what are his cues? That's why I'm always going, okay. I just worked with the kid the last 3 days. I've known him since he was in high school. He got drafted this year. And so, I mean, his dad's my best friend from high school, one of my best friends from high school. And they came just for me to work with them in the off season. And so I was trying to get him a certain move, and all of a sudden it clicked. I'm going, okay. And I said, okay. And as soon as it clicked, I stopped. I didn't keep it going. And the reason why I stopped the drill. I said, what were you thinking right there? Because that's it. Tell me, what is it? And he goes, well, you know what? He goes, what I did. I know you were telling me this, but all of a sudden, what I thought was right now is I just told myself, hey, I want you to be more relaxed. Don't be so tense. He goes, and hit the ball out in front. And I went, how simple is that? And I went, those are your cue. And I worked with them for 3 days. And all those 3 days, whenever I felt like the swing was kind of get off, hey, I go hit it out in front and be relaxed. And all of a sudden, bam. So the point is cueing is so important, because those little cues is what gets guys going. So that's one thing I learned. And probably the other, the game planning this year. We just talked about it. I don't need to go into there, but the game planning, that's the thing that I learned a lot this year. And I can't wait for next year, because I really believe that we got better in game planning, and game planning is huge. It is. Sure. We found that out. And even in the high school level, any level, you can game plan and give guys plan. And it's not just, hey, slay off his curveball. Hey, look up. It's not just that. It's more specific. And we have a lot more information than you guys do, but it's more specific. And I think once you get into the game planning, man, we can really beat the other team.
I love that. Second question was, what is something that you used to believe that you've changed your mind about?
Man, I was old school. I was stubborn, and I was old school. This is the way I've always done it, and I wasn't learning. I tell you where it turned around for me. It was in 2015. I was a hitting coach in A-ball, and I was with the Cleveland Indians, first year with them. And they're big on growth mindset. And so anyways, I started learning more about, okay, I need to get better, because this way is not working. What I've done and what I've learned this whole time, just what I was taught when I was playing, and nothing against the old coaches at all, not at all, because they taught what they knew. I mean, I can't blame them for certain things. They taught what they knew, but we have so much information now. But it's something now that I learned was to investigate, to research, and to become and to be a learner, to have a growth mindset. And before I didn't, I had a fixed mindset. Now, having a growth mindset is something that I learned. And that's where I think I've gotten to another level, that before I was stuck on my ways. Now, like, okay, I'm going to research this and learn and try to see if this way is better than what I was been teaching or what I was taught. So cool. That's something that it's just having a growth mindset.
Sure. No, I love that. Carol Dweck's book, Mindset, Carol Dweck. That changed my life too. Like, I was very fixed, and I still am in some different areas. And so just understanding that and my biases, I couldn't agree more. I love that. With the drill. So always when people are listening to the show, they're trying to get like one practical takeaway. So what's a drill that your players love that we can steal from you?
Man, again, thing is the way I teach, I'm going to try to come up with something right now, but
Sure.
it's not one drill. That's why
Mm-hmm.
what I believe in as a coach is I get the guy first. Okay, where is it? Where's the issue? And that's where I try to see where the kinematic sequence is. Okay, where is it off? Is it his hands? Is it his elbows? Is it his rear hip? Is it his launch position? Is it his timing? Is it mental? It's all that factors come in, and I have a toolbox and a bag that I travel with. I got a bunch of toys in there, and I use constraints to coach, to teach hitting, and every year it gets bigger and bigger because I get more stuff, because I learn more stuff, but it's like, okay, I'm trying to get this guy to make this move because this is where I'm seeing the issues at, and so I give him the drill for that. I don't give the same drills for everybody. That's the thing. It's like it's not. You see on the internet. So many people, there's so much people out there on the internet, and they have all these drills, but these drills aren't for everybody. Those are just maybe that one drill that they're showing might be for that person that they're working with right there. But it's one drill isn't for everybody. That's the thing. It's just not the way it is, because it's like, okay, where's the issue with the hitter?
Right.
So, but again, if there's a drill that a couple of our guys did, again, I'm not saying that this is the one drill everyone's doing now. I don't have them do the same drill at all, but to me, to land in a good hitting position, get there and landing, to me is huge, because a lot of guys, even the big leagues, that they're inconsistent getting to a good hitting position, landing in a good posture and a good setup to land. So, to me, drills for that, there's this band, like a rubber band, gets stretched, and I put it behind them in here, and I put it in between their legs, and that band keeps them stacked. What I mean by stacked, their shoulders, hips, knees, all they move, and you're striding, and you're keeping that stack to your landing position, to your fire position, and that apparatus helps them maintain it, and when they swing, it keeps them right there. It doesn't let them go. So that's one thing that a couple guys did I liked, and another one, and I do it just because I want them to feel direction, is a dead lower half throw, where I just tell guys, okay, just pretend your feet, get your launch position, your feet are in cement or in quicksand, you can't move them. Just go ahead and just move your upper body, just to get them the feel of that torso moving, swinging from the middle of their body, and keeping direction through. Those are just I got so many. There's so many of them, but those are just
that's a good start. For sure.
That's just a couple that I can share.
No doubt. I love it. Well, last one before we roll the outro. Are there any books or anything that you mentioned the growth mindset, and so I'll put Carol's book down below. But are there any other books that you've dug into lately that you've liked, or any that come to mind that have helped you with your career?
Yeah, you know something. Hold on, it's funny because I was going over some things earlier today. I was just going over some things. But so the one is probably Carol Dweck's book on mindset. I've read it already. So it's growth mindset. It's called Mindset. And that's a great book. To me, I would start with that. There's another one that I got that I had in my master's program. It's called Motor Learning and Performance by Richard Schmidt and Timothy Lee. That's the one that helped me the most of all the books. That's the one that helped me the most on hitting, because it's motor skill learning, how we move, how the brain tells the body how to move, and how we practice that, what makes us do things that we do. And I highly recommend that book, because it's going to teach you on motor skill learning. And another one and it's not a book, it's a website that I recommend. It's called it's called Train Ugly. Ugly. And I would highly recommend people going there, because it talks about the random practice and the block practice. And it talks also about motor skill learning, how we learn how to transfer skills into a game.
Sure.
And the last one, like I said earlier, was the Bible. I'll tell you what, in this in this master's program that I was in performance psychology, a lot of the stuff that I learned in that is in the Bible. It's like, but here's the thing, man wants to take credit for it. It's like man's like, look how smart I am and all that. And I'm going, man, that's in the Bible. That's in the Bible. That's just the way I read the Bible a lot. I get a lot of my stuff there, but that's another book that I would say, man, that not only can help you hitting, but it's life changing.
Well, like I mentioned earlier, what's new is never really new, right? And
Exactly.
the more I dig into the Bible, the more I'm like, this stuff that I'm dealing with, David was dealing with. He's a lot cooler guy than I am. But anyways, I love that. But Bobby, man, I appreciate your time. I know that it's limited in the off season, and so I really appreciate it. But I do want to leave you the opportunity to just talk to our guests. Is there anything else that you'd like for them to know or to leave them with before you go?
Be a lifelong learner. Have a growth mindset and be a lifelong learner. I'm a big believer that leaders are learners, and also when you coach and when you're teaching, we learn through failure. And I try to not to use the word fail too much, because I'm a big believer that we either learn, when we either succeed or we learn, but we don't lose, we don't fail. So when you talk about failure, it's like you didn't fail, you just learned. So you didn't fail. And a lot of people look at it that way, like, oh, I suck, or I failed. Like, no, that's how we learn. So you either learn, but or we win, but we don't lose. It's we learn that way, and that's the only way. That's how the randomness is, the random practice. You want to keep making it tough where we're failing a little bit, but keep having a growth mindset and be a lifelong learner. Research things. Don't just take it because you saw someone on the internet that said this. Okay, well, investigate it. Go online or go into evidence-based research studies or peer-reviewed studies on that subject and see if what they're saying is right. Because we want the truth, and that's what I've done. I've that's where I said earlier, I didn't have that. I was stuck on my ways, old school. We always done it. Guy got all this experience, which is good. But now when you combine the experience with knowledge, with truth and evidence-based research studies, you're going to be a good coach, and you're going to help a lot of people.
Thank you for listening to Ahead of the Curve. If you enjoyed the show, please consider leaving us a rating or review wherever you are listening. I also wanted to remind you that you can find the video portion at the AOTC channel on stickandball.tv. Have a great week.